And 3 days worth of dog food when I'm carrying 50-pound blocks of frozen meat and 40-pound bags is between 360 and 480 pounds of just dog food. I'm feeding 14 dogs between 120 and 160 pounds of food a day. That's a lot of food to pump into these guys. Now, if you look back at the 96 Quest, the first year I ran it, I had to go from Dawson to Carmax, 310 miles, and Carmax to the finish line, 200 miles. In 97, Braeburn Lodge and Pelly Crossing were officially added as checkpoints. Before they were dog drops, and at a dog drop, you can get vet care for your dogs. You can leave a sick or injured dog, but you cannot resupply with anything you need to keep going down the trail. So Pelly was very important being added as a checkpoint, because when teams would leave Dawson, they get to Pelly 210 miles into a 310-mile run, and they've either ran out of supplies or don't have enough to run that last 100 miles. So better than 50% of the teams would scratch before 1997. Once they added Pelly, it took 100 miles off that run, dropping it to 210, but also dropping the scratch ratio down to 31%. And that's still high when you look at the Iditarod, and only 16% were scratched from the Iditarod. And then we have 5 mountain ranges from 2,400 foot at Braeburn Lodge all the way up to 3,800 foot King Solomon's Dome. You can pass that around. And when the Yukon Quest last started on the Chena River in Fairbanks of 2008, the ambient air temperature was 47 below zero. When you add the wind chill, it was 60 below. Yep. Now, I know I'm crazy, but that is a good day to start a sled dog race. It's a very good day. If you'd like to read a good book about the Yukon Quest, read Yukon Alone by John Balzac. He'll tell you in his book that Mike King has an extreme tolerance for the cold. He's writing about the 96 Quest, the first year I ran it, and it happens to be one of the coldest in the history. Now, this picture is me in the 97 Yukon Quest, 45 below at the Carmax checkpoint. I've been on the Yukon River 8 hours, so my beard's frosty, but I'm not cold. And if you look close, I have on a t-shirt, 2 medium-weight polar fleece shirts, and a windbreaker at 45 below, and I was plenty warm. But when John writes about me in his book in 96, I didn't even have a windbreaker. I got ready to leave a cabin called Slavin's, headed for Eagle, and another musher by the name of Stanley Najutli came to me and said, Mike, with the wind chills we're having and no windbreak, you'll freeze on the Yukon. So he gave me a piece of nylon. I cut a hole in the center, made a poncho, wrapped a dog line around me as a belt, and headed back out on the Yukon River. We get over here by Pelly. This is the Yukon River again. They have a dog drop. It's called McCabe Creek. And for the first time in my 96 Yukon Quest, I said I was cold. Well, everybody at McCabe Creek laughed at me and told me I should have been cold a long time ago. It was 86 below. The wind chill on the Yukon River, 124 below. I'd frostbitten my cheeks, my nose, and my forehead. And once you suffer damage from frostbite, you get it easier every time you're exposed. It only takes 4 seconds at 40 below zero to frostbite any exposed skin on your body. So this is the Yukon Quest, the toughest sled dog race in the world. Being run in February, it's dark, it's cold, the shortest distance between checkpoints 100 miles, the longest 210, and 5 mountain ranges. Now we are gaining 7 minutes of daylight every day, so as the race goes on, by race in, we've gained an hour to an hour and a half of light. And now we're going to come over to Anchorage, Alaska, and we're going to start the Iditarod. It's March. They have 3 hours more daylight than when the quest started. It's 1,100 miles from Anchorage to Nome. They take the northern route on even years, and they have 25 checkpoints. Southern route on odd years, there's 24 checkpoints. The shortest distance they travel is the ceremonial start, and maybe you've watched that on TV, and that's 15 miles. Then the next morning, they'll restart the race in Wasilla, and from there on, they're going to travel about 50 miles on average. And then the longest run between checkpoints in the Iditarod is one run of 110 miles. That's only 10 miles longer than my shortest run in the Yukon Quest. And they have one mountain range, the Alaska range, of 3,600 feet. And if you look back at the 05 Iditarod, it was 50 above zero at the start line. Now, I'd much rather want to start a race at 50 below over 50 above. That is way too hot for these dogs. They've been running in these sub-zero temperatures all winter, and now it's 50 above, they can't take their coat off. You may think that 10 below zero on a February morning at 11 a.m. is pretty cold. But with the sun in the sky like it is, it's not. 1998, I left the Pelly Crossing checkpoint at 11 a.m., sun up in the sky, with 10 below zero with 12 dogs. 1 hour into my 6-hour run, my dogs were laying on the side of the trail, blown up from heat exhaustion. It's too hot. If I'm running in the daytime with the sun shining in a race, I want it 20, even closer to 30 below. And to be honest with you, if you train with me, you'll be running at night, and you'll be running 30, 40, even 50 below. These dogs will really perform. Now also, when these dogs are running 100 plus miles a day, they will burn between 10 and 14,000 calories per dog per day. So to keep them going, I need to feed a high protein, high fat, dense, dry dog food, and I feed National Performance Plus. I've fed this for the last 12 years, and I'd recommend it to anybody. If you feed National, you'll feed less, your dogs will get more nutrition out of it, and you'll have less to clean up at the end of the day. They make a puppy formula, a maintenance formula, an adult formula. This is for hard-working dogs, and they also make an energy pack, which is 44% fat. It comes in a powdered form. I'm going to add that to this, and it still is not giving them the calories they need to run all day without me having them full all the time. And if they're full, they want to lay down and take a nap. So I feed special meats. I feed champagne race diets. The blue bag is 60% beef, 30% chicken, 10% liver with corn oil, vitamins, and minerals. The red bag is 100% beef with the corn oil, vitamins, and minerals. I buy bags of 100% fryer chickens, just like the ones you buy in the supermarket. They've just been double ground so that the bones are easily digestible for the dogs. And last winter, a 60-pound box of USDA lamb was $110 a box. That is one feeding for my 50-dog kennel. And I also buy a special lamb sausage that in a 1-pound sausage has 10,000 calories. Now that's for snacking, and they get little tiny pieces. If Mouse here or Kay stole a whole 10,000 calorie sausage and ate it, they would get very sick. That's too much protein to put into their system at one time. But every 2 hours as I'm running down the trail, they're going to get a snack of that. I want to keep their energy up, and I don't want them to lose any weight. I also feed beaver meat. I have to be extremely careful. It is 98% protein, little pieces as well. Salmon, high in omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids, and whitefish. These dogs will eat more whitefish during a race than anything, and whitefish has zero nutrition, none whatsoever. Whitefish is 97% water, the rest is fiber. So if I'm 2 or 3 hours into a 6-hour run and the dogs start biting snow, we call it dipping. They're telling me they're thirsty. I don't want to spend a half hour melting snow in my cooker pot and another half hour thawing out meat or fish in my cooler. So I'll just throw each dog a couple of these whitefish. That'll be their drink of water. We'll take a 10 or a 15-minute break, and then we'll continue running down the trail. There's mandatory equipment that we have to carry at all times. I have to carry an axe with a handle length of at least 27 inches. This is for chopping those 50-pound blocks into small pieces so I can thaw out faster, and for chopping ice. I can fill this 3-gallon cooker pot with as much snow as I can pack into it, and when it's all melted, I have 2 cups of water. It's a very dry snow in the interior, not like the slushy, wet East Coast snow back in Maine where I grew up. So here, I'll chip ice and fill it up, then when it melts, it's all water. Or if I can get through to the water, fill it up, and of course it's going to heat a lot faster and save me time. I have to carry a cold weather sleeping bag. Iditarod says 5 pounds, Quest says cold weather. A pair of snowshoes hanging up here. Enough food for each dog to make it into the next checkpoint. Enough booties for each dog to make it to the next checkpoint. The rules actually now state that we have to have a minimum of 1,500 booties. Booties have gone up to $1.50 a piece. So I'm looking at $2,200 in booties before I even start the race. And then this cooker is my most important piece of mandatory equipment. See how this burner has holes all around the outer edge? There's a little slot in the bottom. I'm going to fill it up with heat, light it on fire, and a flame is going to come out every hole and look like a burner on your stove. I can now melt snow into hot water in about 30 minutes. Before this, I just cut a coffee can off, take one of those used booties, throw it in as a wick, fill it up with the heat, light the booty on fire. It would take an hour to an hour and a half. So this is very efficient. It's going to heat my water faster, which is going to give me more time to work with the dogs, which will give me more time to rest. Because if you remember, I only get 1.5 to 2 hours rest every 12 hours. So the fire's going, I've got snow or ice in the cooker pot, and I've added dry dog food, meat, and fish to the coolers, and now I've got to go to work. Come on, you started over here, don't stop. Now we've run for 6 hours, stopping every 2 to give a snack. At the 6-hour mark, they're going to get their snack, and then I'm going to take the booties off. Now those booties protect these guard hairs from getting a snowball. Depending on the temperature and trail conditions, if she throws a booty, she'll get a snowball in there, and then that's going to cause a blister or a split. And I'm going to get into my vet bag and dig out pink ointment. This is made by the veterinarians specifically for racing sled dogs' feet. It has antibiotics to fight infection, help promote healing, and softeners to keep her pads soft so that they don't crack in the dry cold. Now the second most common injury is going to be a wrist injury. She's been running down the trail, stepped in a moose hole, twisted her wrist, but these dogs are tough. They'll run 20, even 50 miles not letting me know anything's wrong. Now that we've stopped, maybe she's holding it up or I see that it's swollen, I'm going to grab yellow ointment out of my vet bag. This has furacin and DMSO. DMSO is a topical pain reliever and the only thing we're allowed to use that relieves pain. I'll rub it into the joint. It will relieve the pain, but if she puts too much pressure on it, she's going to feel it, so she's not going to hurt herself more than she is. Aspirin and Tylenol are not pain relievers. They mask pain by going to her brain, telling her she does not hurt, then she's going to go out there and run as hard and as fast as she can and hurt herself more. Then I'll be disqualified because that is an illegal drug to give these dogs while racing, and they get drug tested before, during, and after the race. So I'll just rub that ointment in. Then I'm going to take a neoprene wrist wrap, and I'm going to wrap this right around her wrist good and tight. Now she cannot bend it. 5 hours into the 6-hour rest, I'm going to take the wrap off, and I'm going to give that wrist a good squeeze. More than likely, she will do another run. But if she lets me know that that's tender when I squeeze it, when we get ready to go, I will load her in the sled, and she will ride to the next checkpoint or dog drop where the veterinarian will care for her. If she's taken out, she does not go back in when she's better, and she is not replaced. I start with 14 in the Yukon Quest. I have to finish with 6. I did her on stats with 16. They have to finish with at least 5. So I need to take good care of these dogs. Now I'm also going to check her elbow and her shoulder by stretching it out. And I also want to pull this shoulder back. Make sure she's not tense, and then I'm going to come back and stretch her back legs out as well. And if she's stiff and I cannot stretch her out, fingertips on the inside with your thumbs here and work these muscles. Nice deep tissue massage. Massage these muscles all out. If I massage a dog when we stop, they will get another one before we go. I don't want them to run 5 or 6 miles down the trail to loosen themselves up, so I'll do that before we leave. In the time it takes to heat my water, I can care for half of the dogs. Now that my water's hot, I'm going to get my dinner. I take a cup of hot water, dump it into a Lipton cup of soup, set it off to the side. When I'm done, I have soup. Well, that's not very much to eat at 40 below. So before the race, I make salmon chowder, moose, and caribou stew. I freeze 1 meal's worth in a seal meal bag. Just a few minutes in that hot water, I have a real meal. I'm going to set it off to the side. And I'm going to add that water to the dry meat and fish. That meat and fish have to thaw out. And that dry is going to soak that water in and swell up and give them a nice full belly so they think they're eating more than they are. And while that's taking place, I'm going to care for the rest of the team. When all 14 dogs are cared for, put the dishes down, feed them, clean their dishes up, eat my dinner, and then take a look at my watch and see how much time I can rest. It's mandatory I carry that sleeping bag. It does not say that I have to use that sleeping bag. This season will be my 20th year mushing and racing, and I have never taken the sleeping bag out of a sled bag once I start a race. I know that if I crawl in that warm bag, I'm just going to pull it right over my head and stay nice and warm. So I'm going to lay with the dogs right on the snow, hour and a half, 2 hours into my rest. I wake up, I've got to chill, I'm going to get up and get moving around, and I have to go back to work. 1 hour before I leave, these dogs have to drink as much water as I can get into them, and the only way they're going to drink water is if it tastes like something. So I put a little bit of meat or fish in the bottom of that cooler, and I start melting snow again. And while that snow is melting, I'm caring for the dogs. I'm going to add that hot water to the meat and fish, and that'll make a nice soupy broth. And while that's breaking down, I finish caring for the team. When they're cared for, put the dishes down, water them, repack the sled, and I know with the routine we have, we've got about 30 minutes and I can leave. I'm going to pull the booties out and start bootying. I can booty 14 dogs in 24 minutes. That's fast. And I'll guarantee you when that last dog has that last booty on, 2 or 3 of them up front, mainly Miss Mouse here, has taken all of her booties off, and I've got to go put them back on. Now these dogs that you saw up here, they don't have the hair of those Disney dogs that you see on TV. So when we're running, they get a windbreaker coat. This is for running down the trail, just a windbreaker. When we're resting, I don't want them using all the energy from that expensive food to stay warm. So now they get insulated, windproof, waterproof. They can lay right on the snow, stay nice and warm, store that energy. And then my girls, when you guys did your run up there and you made the loop at the top of the hill, a lot of white dogs off to the left in the open kennel. Most of those are my girls. They get belly blankets. Front legs go through these holes. This will strap over the shoulders. This will strap over the hips. Keeps their bellies warm. Now my hands, if my hands are cold, I cannot care for these dogs. Here's a pair of the mitts we wear. You can try them on, pass them around. My feet, what is left of, I'm missing 2.5 toes on my left foot. This is a military vapor barrier boot. It's called a bunny boot. You can fall in the water at 50 below zero. Fill this boot right full of ice water, and you don't even have to dump the water out. These boots will warm that water up to your body temperature. If I have time, I'll take the boots off, dump the water out, wring my socks out, put them back on, and head up the trail. And then we have anoraks and parkas. This is a nice parka here. Now parkas zip up. The most important thing about this is the ruff. And you need real fur. When you breathe out, that fur traps your warm air. So when you breathe in, it warms that cold air so that you don't frostbite your sinuses or your lungs. I prefer an anorak. The difference, an anorak is a pullover. I've had this since 1997. I don't wear it unless it's at least 50 below and I'm not moving. Christmas Eve of 2005, I walked 3 miles at 52 below with that on. 1 mile into my 3-mile walk, I looked like you'd dumped a bucket of water over me. Sweat running down my face, but even worse, I could feel water running down my chest and legs. Now I was hot and I wanted to cool off, and I did something I knew I shouldn't have done, but I did it anyway. I had a nice Wolf and Wolverine ruff on that hood at the time. I grabbed that ruff and pulled it back, just like that, over my face and back to cool off. But as it broke the surface of the skin, one breath through my sinuses, frostbit the inside of my sinuses, and when it did break the surface, all that sweat froze and frostbit my face. And now the sleds. This sled here would have been used in a Quest or an Iditarod 10 years ago. These are called stanchions. See how everything is very solid. The handlebars broke off, but this is a rigid, rough riding sled. When you're riding this sled and you're going down the trail, that's what you get, a steady pounding and banging. I can't ride that sled. I just celebrated being alive the last 16 years. Because on July 19th, 1993, I was crushed in a logging accident in Greenville, Maine. I logged for 20 years, so I knew what I was doing. But I cut a tree, struck another tree, had a freak accident, kicking back and crushing me into the ground. And that's the only reason I'm alive, into the ground. Transverse fractures, L1 to L5, tearing the muscle completely off my back. Scar tissue was growing back. With the tree on my back, I couldn't reach my saw. I kicked until I got turned over. I could reach my saw, I gave a pull, it started, I cut here, set the saw on my chest, turned my head, cut here, pushed the tree off, stood up, and thought I could walk out until I realized I couldn't move. My right leg was behind me. In the x-rays, the hip ball sets on the socket. I've had no blood supply to my hip in just over 16 years and 2 knee operations. I'm in back pain every day. I'm in pain right now, and I do not take pain meds. It's been over 10 years. Now this is a sled I built. It's called an Easy Rider. See the difference? See that rear stanchion? 10 inches high. Now it allows this runner to flex 2 feet up in front of me, but even more importantly, they flex down. So when I'm going over those bumps, instead of coming off those bumps, pounding and banging, now it's flexing and bending. Takes all the jarring out of my lower back. I have a platform, it's called a tail dragger. Same height as this, slides in these channels, tighten the bolts down. Now I take 2 of my coolers, strap them to that platform. I have a canoe seat with a backrest. I can sit down, gives me back support, put my feet up like I'm in my recliner, pull my headphones out and listen to some music. Well folks, my time's about up. You're going to go get to see some puppies here. There is a gift shop and complimentary drinks. So I've told you about the Quest and the Iditarod, the 2 major races we run. But more importantly, how we care for these dogs. Because these races are not about me. They're about these dogs and the dog care. And the most important thing is not to be the first musher across that finish line. But what's more important is to get as many of my dogs from start to finish as happy and as healthy as they can be. Now before you run away, if you'd like to ride an Easy Rider sled with 6 of my dogs in front of you following me down the trail, take a picture of this sign, Alaska Trail King Adventures. I offer winter dog mushing from 1 hour all the way up to 8-day camping trips. I even do expeditions where I teach basic winter survival. And if you go look at the October 07 National Geographic Traveler, the issue, Tours of a Lifetime, 50 of the world's best trips, and number 13 is Mushing in Alaska with Mike King and Alaska Trail King Adventures. They covered my 6-day trip. So if you take a picture of the sign, you can go to the website, you can read about my trips, you can read what other people have said about their trips, see pictures of the dogs. There's 3 view dog sleds. When you click on, that'll bring up a different model sled I build. You can see who my sponsors are, and there's even a page where you can make a donation if you want to see me race this year. I haven't raced the Quest since '99. Last year we were signed up, but we had to withdraw the last day we could get our entry fee back without losing it. I was still $5,000 shy. To race that race, I need to raise $15,000, and $7,000 is just dog food. Well, folks, thank you very much for spending time with us, and enjoy the rest of your time here at Musher's Camp. Enjoy those puppies. Thanks again, folks.
Thank you. Perfect.